In this video, we are taking a deep dive into Nobody 2. We will break down the storyline, give a clear plot summary, and take a closer look at the cast and character. We will also explore the film production detail and analyze its box office performance. To wrap things up, we will share our thoughts and personal reaction. Let's get started. When we begin talking about this movie, it is important to slow down and understand why this sequel deserves attention in the first place. On the surface, it may look like just another action follow up in a market already crowded with franchise extension. But when we look more closely at its genre positioning, the director's vision, and the film's overall production style, we begin to see why this is a film worth discussing thoughtfully. First, let's consider the genre. This film firmly sits within the modern action thriller space, but it does not operate in a traditional straight faced manner. Instead, it blends high intensity action with dark comedy and stylized violence. This hybrid tone is significant. In recent years, audiences have gravitated toward action films that are self-aware, movies that understand the absurdity of their own scale while still delivering tightly choreographed, compact, and kinetic energy. This film embraces that balance. It respects the structure of classic revenge and crime thriller, yet it injects a certain playful sharpness that prevents it from feeling overly grim or self-serious. That genre blending make it particularly interesting in today's cinematic landscape. Action films often risk becoming repetitive, similar fight sequence, familiar narrative beats, predictable tonal rhythm. What makes this sequel stand out in conservation is how it continues to explore action as entertainment rather than pure spectacle. It leans into physical choreography, practical stunt work, and grounded brutality instead of relying entirely on digital access. That choice alone makes it worthy of discussion among genre fans. Now turning to direction with Timo Tjahjanto at the helm, the sequel takes on a distinct stylistic edge. Taj Hejento is known for his intense visual language and commitment to visual action staging. His background in fast paced, hard hitting cinema influenced the way scenes are structured even without diving into specific story moment. You can sense a director who value rhythm, quick burst of movement contrasted with quieted pauses that build tension. That pacing control is not accidental. It reflects a filmmaker who understands how to shape adrenaline without exhausting the audience. What's particularly compelling is how the director's style intersects with the franchise's established tone. Instead of reinventing the formula entirely, the film refines it. The camera work feel intentional, often staying close to the visuality of the action rather than drifting into chaotic editing. This gives the film a tactile quality. You feel the impact of movement. Their choreography has weight, and in an era where many action films rely heavily on rapid cuts to stimulate intensity, that grounded approach stands out. Production style is another area where Nobody 2 invites discussion. The film continued to prioritize practical effect and real stunt coordination, which add authenticity to the on-screen violence. The lighting design lean into sharp contrast, often using industrial texture and lived-in environments rather than glossy artificial backdrop. That aesthetic reinforces the film's gritty tone while still maintaining a cinematic polish. Sound designs also play a crucial role. Action cinema thrives on auditory immersion, punches, crashes, environmental echoes. This sequel demonstrates careful layering in its soundscape, allowing each action beat to resonate. The music selection and score contribute to the film's rhythm without overwhelming it. Instead of dedicated emotion, the soundtrack complements the physical momentum on screen. From a broader industry perspective, this film is worth discussing because it reflects the evolving expectation of action audience. Viewers today want more than spectacle, they want style, control, and a clear directorial voice. This film attempts to deliver exactly that. It positions itself not merely as a sequel but as a continuation of a specific brand of action filming, lean, aggressive, and darkly humorous. So, before we even analyze performance or narrative development, it's important to appreciate the craftsmanship at work. Genre awareness, confident direction, and disciplined production choices from the foundation of this sequel. And in a time when franchise films can often feel manufactured, it is present itself as something more deliberate, an action film shaped by style and intact rather than formula alone. It was produced with an estimated budget of approximately $25 million. From an industry standpoint, this places the film in the mid range category for modern action thriller. It is neither a low budget independent production nor a large scale blockbuster with extensive global set pieces and heavy visual effects. Instead, it occupies a financially disciplined space that align with the tone and scope established by its predecessor. The first film was reportedly made for around $16 million, so the sequel reflects a moderate increase in spending. That increase will likely account for higher cast salaries, expanded action choreography, and a silently broader production scale while still maintaining cost control. While when analyzing resource allocation, a significant portion of the budget would have been directed toward above the line expenses. This includes compensation for lead actor, key supporting cast member, the director and producer, giving the visibility and reputation of the main cast. Following the success of the original film, salary adjustments are expected. The visibility and reputation of the main cast following the success of the original film, cast salary adjustment are expected in a sequel. Establish performance offer negotiate higher fees once a franchise demonstrate commercial viability. However, because this is not a tentpole franchise, those salaries likely remain within our control range compared to major studio action properties. Another substantial area of spending would involve stunt coordination and action choreography. The identity of the Nobody series is rooted in grounded, practical combat sequence rather than CGI heavy spectacle. That means funds are directed towards still stunt teams, rehearsal time, fight design, safety planning, and on set coordination. Practical action may appear less expensive than visual effect driven spectacle, but high quality stunt work still require significant investment. Insurance costs, specialized rigging equipment, and extended production days for complex fight scenes contribute meaningfully to the overall budget. Production design, location, shooting also absorb a noticeable portion of the allocated fund. Even when a film is not globe trotting, creating believable environment require construction crews, set dressing, lighting design, and logistical planning. If production took place in cost efficient filming location, tax incentives and regional rebates may have helped offset expenses. Many mid-budget action films rely on such incentives to stretch production value without increasing overall cost. Post-production spending is another key factor. Editing, sound design, score composition, color grading, and sound mixing are critical to action filming. In a film that emphasizes physical impact and pacing, sound work because particularly important. While this movie does not rely heavily on large scale digital effects, there would still be some visual effect spending for enhancement, cleanup, and safety adjustment. However, the limiting reliance on extensive CGI likely help keep costs under control compared to large franchise action films. When comparing this film to similar film in the genre, the budget stand out as retain. Many contemporary action sequels operate in the 60 and $120 million range, particularly what when they involve good global marketing strategies and established franchise branding. Even mid-tier studio action films frequently exceed $50 million. In contrast, a $25 million budget reflects a deliberate strategy. Produce a tightly constructed action thriller with control scale rather than compete directly with blockbuster franchise. This financial positioning affects risk exposure. A film with a $25 million production cost has a lower break-even threshold than a $100 million blockbuster. While marketing expenses are separate and can significantly raise total investment, the production figure itself indicates higher risk. Studios often expect a film to generate approximately 2 to 3 times its production budget in total revenue stream to approach profitability when counting for distribution, split, and marketing. In that context, maintaining a moderate production budget increases the likelihood of long-term financial sustainability through theatrical revenue, digital rent, streaming deals, and international licensing. Overall, the estimated $25 million budget reflects a strategic balance. The film invests in practical action, recognizable talent, and polished post production while avoiding the financial viability associated with large scale CGI spectacle. Compared to the similar genre entirely, Intrinsic demonstrates discipline spending aligned with its stylistic goal. The result is a production model that prioritizes efficiency and control expansion rather than dramatic escalation in scale. This film firmly belongs to the action thriller genre, but it does not operate with a single tonal lane. Instead, it blends crime driven tension, grounded compact, and dark humor into a hybrid style that defines its identity. At its core, the film functions as a continuation of the modern, everyday man with a violent past subgenre, yet it distinguishes itself through its controlled pacing and carefully shaped mood. Atmospherically, the film leans into a gritty but steadily heightened reality. The environment feels tangible rather than glossy. Lighting choices often emphasize contrast, dim interior, shadow corridor, and harsh practical light sources that create depth and texture. The visual atmosphere reinforces the grounded tone of the action. The world does not feel fantastical or exaggerated in a comic book sense. Instead, it maintains a sense of physical presence. Surface look warm, spaces feel live in. That production design support the mood of contained tension simmering beneath ordinary surroundings. The pacing reflects a deliberate rhythm rather than non-stop chores. Unlike large-scale action spectacles that rely on continuous set pieces, it uses a build and release structure. Quieter movement allow tension to accumulate before erupting into tightly choreographed bursts of violence. This approach strengthens engagement because the action feel earned rather than constant. The pauses between confrontation are essential to the film's mood. They create anticipation and allow the audience to settle into a false sense of calm before intensity returns. Tone is where the film becomes particularly distinctive. It balances brutality with dark comedy, creating a mood that is intense but not oppressive. The violence is sharp and impactful, yet the film often carries a subtitle self-awareness. Its tonal layering prevents the atmosphere from becoming overwhelming grim. There is a control irony embedded in the presentation, and understanding that the premise itself contains a degree of exaggeration. However, the humor never fully undercut the stake, instead, it coexists with them, giving the film a tightly offbeat energy. Stylistically, the action sequence prioritizes clarity over spectacle. The camera work tend to stay close to the movement, avoiding excessive shaky calm or rapid disorientated cuts. This choice preserves spatial awareness during fights and reinforcing the grounding aesthetic. When impact occurs, it feels direct. The choreography is methodical rather than flashy, emphasizing efficiency and physicality over stylized acrobatics. That stylistic decision shape the mood into something raw and immediate. Sound design play a crucial role in reinforcing the atmosphere. Impact carry weight, environmental sounds are layered with intention, and silence is occasionally used as a tension building device. Music selection complement the tone without overwhelming it. Rather than dominating emotional cues, the score enhances the rhythm of senses, subtly guiding the mood without dictating it. This restraint in musical emphasis contribute to the film's steady paces. The film's mood also reflects a sense of control, escalation. It does not begin at maximum intensity. Instead, it gradually increases narrative pressure, allowing stake to grow it incrementally. These progressions support a sustained engagement rather than front loaded excitement. By structuring tension in waves, the film maintains momentum without exhausting the viewers. In comparison to broader action franchises that rely on large scale destruction and global stakes, it maintains a more intimate tonal focus. The conflict feels personal rather than epic. That intimacy shapes the atmosphere into something tighter and more immediate. The scale may expand tightly compared to its predecessor, but the emotional and stylistic core remains centered on close quarter intensity. Overall, the genre framework of action thriller is enhanced by a carefully calibrated mood. Through controlled pacing, grounded visual style, dark comedic undertone, and tactile fight choreography, the film creates an atmosphere that is intense yet measured. It avoids becoming overly grim while still delivering sharp bursts of energy. The result is a tonal balance that defines its identity within the contemporary action landscape. Before audience even step into the theater for this movie, expectations are already forming. Sequel carry a unique kind of anticipation because viewers are not walking in blind. They are carrying memories, comparison, and emotional impression from the first film. In this case, expectations are shaped heavily by the identity of the original nobody and the type of audience it attracted. From a viewer's demographic perspective, the primary audience likely consists of adults in the 25 to 50 age range, particularly those who appreciate grounded action film with sharp humor. The first film movie appeal strongly to fans who grew up on 80s and 90s action thriller but now prefer something leaner and slightly self-aware. Many viewers also follow Bob Odenkirk from his dramatic television work, so there is an added layer of curiosity seeing a performer known for subtitle character-driven role embrace physical high-intensity action. That crossover appeal bring in both action enthusiastic and fan of character-focused storytelling. Male viewers may form a significant portion of the demographic, especially those drawn to revenge driven narrative and choreographed combat. However, the film blend of humor and family elements broaden its reach beyond a purely male action audience. Couples and casual moviegoers who enjoy the tonal balance of the first film may approach the sequel expecting a similar mix of tension and wit rather than non-stop aggression. Genre fans, particularly those who enjoy mid-budget action thriller, walk into this movie with clear anticipation. They expect practical stunt work over excessive CGI. They expect tightly framed light fight scenes with visible choreography rather than chaotic editing. They anticipate a grounded atmosphere, something more intimate than large scale franchise spectacle. For these viewers, the appeal lies in efficiency, concise storytelling, impactful action, and controlled pacing. There is also the expectation of escalation. Sequels traditionally promise bigger and more intense, even if audience claim they want the same tone as the original. They subconsciously anticipate some level of expansion, whether that mean higher stake and more elaborate set pieces or deeper exploration of the central character world. Viewers may expect the sequels to refine what worked previously while adding a fresh stylistic edge. If the first film was about surprise, the second is about reinforcement and growth. Anticipated theme also shape expectation. Audience familiar with the audience likely expect continued exploration of dual identity, the contrast between ordinary domestic life and hidden violence. They anticipate tension between personal relationship and dangerous past connection. There is an assumption that theme of control, restraint, and suppressed capability will resurface. At the same time, viewers may expect a slightly lighter tone, leaning into dark comedy to balance the brutality. Another important expectation centered on pacing. The first film was praised for not overstaying its welcome, so viewers likely anticipate a similar runtime and rhythm. They expect the film to move quickly without unnecessarily subplot. In today's cinematic landscape, audience often appreciate tight storytelling over sprawling narrative, and fans of this franchise likely expect that efficiency to remain intact. There is also the matter of tone consistency. Genre fans want the sequel to preserve the gritty realism and tactile combat that distinguished the original. If the film leaned too heavily into exaggerated spectacle, it risks disappointing those who admire the grounded style. On the other hand, some viewers may hope for slightly more ambitious action choreography under new direction. Balancing familiarity with innovation becomes central to meeting expectation. Finally, audience expectations are influenced by the broader action genre environment. Viewers are accustomed to massive franchise film with numerous budget and global scale. It entered the conservation position at something more control and character focus. Many fans expect it to feel personal rather than epic. They anticipate intensity without overwhelming scale. In many view, the strongest expectation going into this film is tonal balance. Audience want sharp action, but they also want personality. They expect moment of tension mixed with dry humor. They want the film to feel confident in its identity rather than imitating larger franchise. Above all, we will viewers expect authenticity, practical choreography, commented performance, and a sense that the film understands its own style. Whether those expectations are fully met is the part of critical conservation. But before the first scene even begins, it is clear that nobody too carries a specific set of anticipation shaped by general loyalty, demographic appeal, and the legacy of predecessor. It is clearly designed with a specific type of viewers in mind. While it may attract a broad theatrical audience, its core appeal is targeted toward adults who appreciate grounded character driven action rather than large scale fantasy spectacle. Understanding the target audience require looking at age group, interest, and genre preferences. In terms of age group, the film is primarily aimed at mature viewers, likely those age 18 and above, with a strong concentration in the 25 and 50 demographic. The tone, violence, and dark humor are more aligned with adult sensibilities than teenage escapism. The action sequences are intense and physical, not cartoonish or sanitized. This makes the film less suitable for younger audience and more appealing to viewers who are comfortable with gritty storytelling. Additionally, many people in their late 20s and older may feel a stronger connection to the film's themes of responsibility, domestic life, and suppressed identity. These elements resonate more deeply with adults who understand the pressures of balancing personal and professional role. Another significant segment of the target audience include viewers who grew up watching action films from the 1980s and 1990s. There is a nostalgic undertone in the way the movie approaches compact and pacing. It favors practical stunts, tight choreography, and close quarter intensity over excessive computer generated spectacle. Fan of classic action cinema, those who appreciate efficient storytelling and focused tension are likely to feel at home with this style. The aim does not aim to compete with massive superhero franchise. Instead, it offers something more control and intimate which appeal to viewers who prefer grounded realism. In terms of interest, the film caters to audience who enjoy crime thriller, revenge narrative, and morally complex protagonists. The central appeal lies in watching a seemingly ordinary individual reveal extraordinary capability under pressure. Viewers who enjoy stories about hidden past, dual identities, and personal redemption will find this concept engaging. The film is not built around fantasy mythology or futuristic technology. It revolves around physical skill, psychological tension, and calculated violence that make it especially attractive to viewers who prefer realism within their action entertainment. Genre preferences play a crucial role in identifying the target audience. The film speaks directly to action thriller enthusiasts, particularly those who appreciate a blend of intensity and dark humor. It occupies a space similar to other mid-budget action films that emphasize character over spectacle. Fan of tightly structured narrative with minimal filler will likely respond positively. The pacing and tone are designed for viewers who want momentum without constant sensory overload. The inclusion of dry wit and subtitle irony also broadens the appeal beyond pure action fan. Viewers who enjoy tonal contrast where tension is occasionally offset by understated humor are part of the intended audience. This balance makes the film attractive to couples or groups who may not typically choose a straightforward grim action movie. The humor provides accessibility without diluting the intensity. At the same time, the film is less suited for viewers seeking episode world ending stakes or elaborate CGI set pieces. Those who primarily enjoy superhero blockbuster large scale fantasy adventure may find the scope comparatively restrained. The target audience is more likely to appreciate contained stake and personal conflict rather than global catastrophe. The film scale is deliberate, it focuses on human level tension rather than spectral driven drama. Another aspect of the target audience include fan of character driven performance because the lead actor brings a background rooted in dramatic and comedic work. Viewers who appreciate layered performance may be particularly drawn to this sequel. It is not simply about explosion and chase sequence, it is about the contrast between normalcy and violence that knows attract viewers who want more than surface level action. Mm, It is made for adult viewers who enjoy grounded, tightly paced action thriller with a touch of dark humor. It appealed to audience age roughly 25 and above, especially those nostalgic for practical stunt-driven cinema. It deals viewers prefer character-focused narrative, crime-infused tension, and realistic comeback to a large-scale fantasy spectacle. While it may entertain a broader crowd, its true audience consists of those who value intensity, efficiency, and storytelling within the action genre. It promises an emotional experience that is built less on sweeping sentiment and more on control intensity. The film does not aim to overwhelm viewer with dramatic tragedy or grand inspirational arc. Instead, it offers a steady build of tension, burst of adrenaline, and moment of dark humor that create a layered emotional rhythm. The experience is designed to be sharp, engaging, and occasionally cathartic. The dominant mood of the film is simmering tension. From the outset, there is a sense that calm is fragile. Even in quieter scenes, the atmosphere carries an undercurrent of anticipation. This mood shapes the emotional journey by keeping viewers alert. Rather than relying on surprise alone, the film cultivates suspense through pacing. Audiences are encouraged to feel the pressure building before it is released through sudden kinetic action that release provide a form of emotional payoff and adrenaline surge that feel earned because it follows restraint. Alongside tension, there is a strong thread of dark humor. The emotional experience is not relentlessly grim. Instead, it allows moments of irony and subtitle comedy to surface between confrontation. This tonal balance creates relief without diminishing the stakes. Viewers may find themselves laughing lightly at unexpected line or situation only to be pulled back into intensity moment later. That fluctuation keeps the emotional experience dynamic rather than monotonous. Thematically, the film centers on idea of identity, restraint, and the cost of violence. While it operates within an action framework, it quietly explores what it means to suppress one's true capability and what happens when that suppression fails. This thematic exploration and foundation give the emotional experience more depth than simple action spectacle. There is an internal tension running parallel to the physical conflict. The emotional weight does not come from elaborate speeches or overt melodrama but from the contrast between normalcy and eruption. And other important theme influencing the emotional tone is responsibility. The story suggests the strain of balancing personal life with dangerous obligation. That theme resonates particularly with adult viewers who understand competing pressure in their own lives. The emotional promises here is subtitled relatability within heightened circumstances. Even though the events are streamed, the core feeling of managing hidden stress feels grounded. The intended impact of the film appeared to be cathartic rather than transformative. It does not necessarily aim to leave audience contemplative for days. Instead, it delivers a contained emotional arc that is satisfied in the moment. The adrenaline spike over provide excitement. The quieter scene provide brief reflection. The combination results in a viewing experience that feel complete without being emotionally exhausting. Importantly, the mood avoid disappear. Even during intense confrontation, there is a sense of control in the storytelling. The violence, while impactful, is stylized in a way that maintains narrative structure. Viewers are not meant to feel hopeless or overwhelmed. They are meant to feel engaged and energized. The emotional journey follows a pattern of tension, release, and resolution. There is also an undercurrent of empowerment woven into the experience. Watching a character navigate high pressure situation with calculated precision can create a sense of vicarious strength. That does not mean the film glorifies aggression without consequence, but it does frame capability as something compelling. For many viewers, that control competence contribute to the film's emotional appeal. It promises an emotional experience defined by intensity balanced with wit. Its mood is tense but not bleak, aggressive but not chaotic. Its theme adds a layer of personal depth beneath the action, and its intended impact is immediate engagement and adrenaline driven journey that satisfied through rhythm and release. The film seeks to leave audience feeling energized, entertained, and subtly reflective rather than emotionally drained. At its core, Nobody to 2025 revolve around the tension between concealment and revelation. The story concept is built on the idea that identity is never singular. A person may appear ordinary, integrated into routine, domestic stability, and social normalcy. Yet, beneath that surface may exist a capacity shaped by past experience, discipline, and violence. The film Abstract Foundation explore what happens when that hidden dimension refuses to remain dormant. One of the external themes is duality. The narrative does not simply portray action for spectacle, it examines the coexistence of contraindication within a single individual. There is the public self and the private self, the restrained self and the unleashed self. The story suggests that suppression is never permanent. When pressure accumulates, containment eventually fractures. In this way, the film becomes less about external conflict and more about the inevitability of exposure. The, the concealed self is not erased by time, it waits. Another core theme is consequence. The idea that past action generate ripples that extend beyond their original context underlines the structure of the story. The protagonist's history is not a closed chapter but an action force. The narrative implies that one can't entirely detach from earlier version of oneself. Attempts to create distance through domesticity, routine, or reinvention do not eliminate what has already been shaped. The film's message in abstract terms point toward continuity rather than escape. Embedded within this is a meditation on control. The character struggle is not solely against external antagonists but against internal impulses. Violence is portrayed not merely as reaction but as capability. The tension arises from the question of what the capability is justified, or what it when it becomes excessive and whether it can truly be moderated. The story concept suggests that control is fragile, a balancing act maintained through discipline rather than transformation. The emotional journey of the narratives come from watching that balance shift. The film also engages with the theme of ordinary film life as performance. Routine becomes a kind of mask. The suburban setting, the daily rituals, the quiet interaction, these represent stability. But they also represent concealment. The abstract message here is that normalcy can function as camouflage. Society often equates predictability with harmlessness. The story challenges that assumption, implying that depth and danger may coexist beneath the most unremarkable exterior. And other key idea is protection. Beneath the surface of aggression lies a motivation centered on safeguard what is value. The narratives frame confrontation not as ambition but as defense. In abstract terms, the story examines how love and loyalty can catalyze dormant power. The protagonist does not seek chaos. Chaos emerges when boundaries are crossed. This transforms violence from random spectacle into an extension of commitment. The message suggests that strength becomes morally complex when tied to responsibility. There is also a broader commentary on aging and violence. The character embodies experience rather than youthful recklessness. The story subtly addressed the fear of obsolescence, the concern that past capability has been dulled or forgotten. When circumstances demand action, the narrative reaffirms the persistence of skill and intent. In doing so, it offers a thematic reassurance. Experience does not evaporate, it accumulates. The film positions maturity not as limitation but as refinement. Structurally, the story concept operates through escalation. Calm is introduced as temporary equilibrium disruption that reveals the instability beneath that calm. Each layer of conflict strips away another level of dispute until only assassins remain. This progression reflects the broader theme of inevitability. The narrative arc suggests that identity once forged can't be permanently rewritten. One may delay confrontation, but one can't definitely deny what has been internalized. The message is not explicitly moralistic. It does not declare violence inherently redemptive or condemn it outright. Instead, it presents action as a tool shaped by context. The ethical dimension emerges from intention and boundary rather than from the act itself. In abstract terms, the film explores the complexity of agency. Power exists. The question becomes how, when, and why it is used. Ultimately, the core idea of Nobody Do is about the persistence of the self. It examines the impossibility of complete reinvention and tension between who we were and who we attempt to become. Through themes of duality, consequence, control, protection, and experience, the story suggests that identity is cumulative rather than replacement. The past remains embedded within the present, waiting for conditions that demand it returns. In this sense, the film story concept transcends its action framework. Beneath the choreography and confrontation lies a meditation on authenticity. When layers of normalcy are stripped away, what remains is not transformation but revelation. The narrative purpose that the truest version of a person is not necessarily the calmest or the most visible one. It may be the one forged under pressure. At the heart of Nobody 2 2025 lies a central conflict that is less about physical confrontation and more about internal contradiction. While the film operates within the structure of an action thrill, its driving tension grows from a moral dilemma. Can a person who has mastered violence truly detach from it? Or is that capability an inseparable part of who they are? The story framed this question not as a philosophical abstraction but as a lived struggle, one that unfolds through mounting pressure and unavoidable choices. The primary moral dilemma revolves around restraint versus response. The central figure is someone who understands the cost of aggression yet also understands its effectiveness. Violence is both a solution and a threat. Choosing not to act may preserve peace in the short term but risk vulnerability. Choosing to act may restore control but reopen doors that were intentionally closed. This dilemma creates sustained tension because there is no perfectly clean answer. Every option carries consequence. Another layer of conflict emerges from the tension between personal identity and social responsibility. The character exists within a structured life one built on predictability, routine, and the expectation of stability. That life demand composure and consistency, yet beneath that surface lies a history that contradicts the appearance of normalcy. The conflict then is not only external but existential. Is it possible to inhabit both identity without one erasing the other, or must one inevitably dominate? This duality produces a challenge of integration. The character is not wrestling with whether they are capable. That capability is unquestioned. The struggle is about whether it should be exercised, and if so, under what condition. The tension intensifies because the surrounding world does not fully understand the internal stake. From the outside, circumstances may appear straightforward. From within, they are layered with memory, consequence, and self awareness. The central conflict also touches on the theme of provocation. Pressure does not emerge in isolation, it builds through incremental disruption. Each challenge tests patience, resolve, and boundaries. The moral complexity arises when those boundaries are across. The question becomes whether retaliation restore equilibrium or perpetuate instability. This dynamic keeps the tension active. The audience is invited to consider not just what will happen but what should happen. There is also a psychological dimension to the conflict. Suppression requires energy, maintaining control demand constant vigilance. The story implies that restraint is not passive but active, a continuous effort to hold back in instant. When circumstances intensify, the effort becomes increasingly difficult. The tension escalates not simply because of external threat, but because of the strain placed on self discipline. The challenge is endurance as much as action, and other moral layer involve protection and responsibility. When personal safety intersect with border obligation, decision become more complicated. Acting may safeguard what is value but may also expose those same values to greater danger. The character must weigh immediate defense against long-term consequence. This balancing act amplifies the emotional stake without requiring detailed plot specifics. The conflict is fundamentally about priority, which risk is more acceptable. The story also engages with the idea of legacy. Action taken in the present can redefine how the past is interpreted. The central conflict is aware that choices do not occur in a vacuum. They reinforce our undetermined attempt at reinvention. This awareness deepens the tension because the stakes are not merely physical, they are symbolic. Each decision affirm or contradict the identity the character has tried to construct. Importantly, the central conflict does not present a simple villain versus hero dynamic. Instead, it situates opposition as a catalyst for internal reknowing. External antagonism function as a mirror, reflecting unresolved aspect of the protagonist's nature. The real challenge is less about defeating an opponent and more about reconciling a conflicting impulses. This internalization of conflict gives the narrative its weight. Ultimately, the central tension of this film is about control under pressure. It asks whether self restraint can withstand escalation, whether reinvention can survive provocation, and whether violence can ever truly remain dormant once it has been defined a person's past. The moral dilemmas are layered, the challenges are cumulative, and the tension arises from the inevitability of choice. The film's core struggle then is not simply survival or victory, it is the negotiation between past and present, between instant and intention. The central conflict is sustained by the understanding that every decision reshapes identity. In this way, the tension becomes both narrative and philosophical, rooted in action but driven by the enduring question of who a person becomes when tested. It explores a layered set of themes that extend beyond surface level action. When the film presents itself as a high intensity thriller, its narrative foundation engages with ethical questions, emotional arc, and subtitle cultural topic that give the story greater depth. Beneath the choreography and tension lies a meditation on identity, responsibility, and cost of power. One of the central ethical questions revolve around the morality of violence. The film does not present aggression as purely heroic or purely condemnable. Instead, it situates violence within context. When does force become justified? Is it ethical to use extreme measures to protect stability? These questions do not receive simple answer. The story frames violence as both a tool and a burden. It is effective, but it carries consequences psychological, relational, and societal. The audience is invited to wrestle with whether intention alone is enough to justify action. Closely tied to this is the theme of restraint. The protagonist's emotional arc is shaped by the tension between suppression and release. The film suggests that discipline is not passive, it is an active choice made repeatedly under suppression and release. The film suggests that discipline is not passive, it is the active choice made repeatedly under pressure. Ethically, this raises question about self-control. Is a person defined by what they are capable of doing or by what they choose not to do? The emotional journey reflects this dilemma. Each escalation tests the boundaries of patience, forcing reflection on how much restraint is sustainable before it becomes denial. Identity is another dominant theme. The narrative explores the complexity of living between two shelves, the public persona and the concealed history. This duality touches on broader culture ideas about reinvention. In modern society, individuals are often encouraged to redefine themselves, to move beyond their past. Yet the film suggests that the past remains embedded within the present. He questions whether transformation is genuine or simply layer over earlier truth. The emotional arc here centers on reconciliation. Can one integrate conflicting aspects of identity without fragmentation? Family and responsibility from another thematic pillar. The story's implicity addresses the weight of obligation. Protection becomes both motivation and moral tension. Acting to safeguard loved ones may feel instinctive, but the film props the ethical cost of what that intent is. Protection still virtuous if it invites further danger. The emotional stake rise as personal relationship intersect with escalating conflict. The audience experienced not only physical suspense but also relational strain, highlighting how private lives are affected by hidden histories. The film also touches on aging and relevances. Unlike many action protagonists defined by youth, this narrative acknowledges maturity and accumulated experience. There is a cultural commentary embedded here about capability beyond peak physical year. The story challenges the assumption that aging equates to diminished strength. Instead, it reframes experience as shared perception. Emotionally, this arc resonates with viewers who understand the anxiety of obsolescence. The themes become less about proving worth and more about reclaiming it. Power and control are recurring thematic thread. The film examines who hold power and how it is exercised. Power is shown as fluid rather than fixed, shifting based on circumstances and decisions. Ethically, this raises question about accountability. If someone possesses extraordinary capability, are they obliged to use it responsibility at all time, or is a selective engagement acceptable? The tension between capability and restraint underscore the broader culture conservation about strength and responsibility. Another subtitle cultural topic involves normalcy as performance. The narrative suggests that everyday life can function as a mark. Social expectation often demand predictability and composure, yet individuals may carry complexity unseen by those around them. This theme resonates with the contemporary decision about authenticity. The film hits that identity is layered and that societal role do not always reflect inner reality. Emotionally, this creates empathy. Viewers recognize the universal experience of presenting one version of themselves while managing another internally. Redemption is also present as a thematic undercurrent. While the film does not frame its story as overt atonement, there is an implicit question about whether past action can be balanced through present choices. Redemption here is not sentimental, it is pragmatic. It unfolds through responsibility rather than apology. The emotional arc suggests that growth is measured not by erasing the past but by navigating it with awareness. Ultimately, it explores themes that blend ethical ambiguity with personal introspection. It raises questions about violence and justification, identity and reinvention, power and accountability. Its emotional arc are grounded in tension between restraint and release, protection and risk. Culturally, it reflects contemporary anxieties about relevance, authenticity, and complexity of self. Through these layered themes, the film elevates itself beyond simple action entertainment, engage viewers in reflection without sacrificing intensity. The result is a narrative that invites ethical consideration while delivering emotional momentum, balancing philosophical depth with visual energy. It builds its tension, its emotional connection with viewers not through overt sentimentality but through tension, relatability, and control catharsis. The film understands that emotional engagement in an action thriller does not always come from dramatic speeches or tearful revelations. Instead, it emerges from mood, thematic resonance, and the viewer's lived experience of pressure, responsibility, and identity. The mood plays a crucial role in shaping that connection. From the beginning, the atmosphere carries a subtitle undercurrent of instability. Even in moments of calm, there is a feeling that something unresolved lingers beneath the surface. This simmering tension mirrors a universal emotional state, the experience of managing stress quietly while maintaining outward composure. Many viewers recognize this dynamic in their own lives, their effort to appear steady while navigating internal complexity. By maintaining this mood, the film creates identification rather than distance. As the story unfolds, bursts of action function as emotional release. The pacing allows pressure to build gradually, and when that pressure breaks, it over catharsis. For viewer, this reason becomes the part of the emotional experience. The tension reflects everyday frustration and anxiety, while the release delivers vicarious relief. The connection lies not necessarily in the specific of the conflict, but in the feeling of being pushed to a limit and responding decisively. Thematically, the film connects through its exploration of dual identity. The idea that a person contains multiple versions of themselves, some visible, other concealed, is deeply relatable. Most viewers understand what it means to compartmentalize different roles: professional, familial, personal. The protagonist struggle to reconcile contrasting identities become symbolic of a broader human experience. The emotional connection formed because the story reflects that internal negotiation. It asks whether no one can truly separate who they were from or who they are trying to be. Another theme that strengthens emotional engagement is responsibility. The story suggests that personal strength often exists in tension with obligation. Acting decisively may solve immediate problem but complicate long-term stability. This dilemma resonates because it mirrors real-world choices. Viewers are drawn into narrative not simply because of physical state but because of moral weight. The sense of accountability embedded in the story gives emotional depth to moments of confrontation. The film also connects emotionally through its portrayal of restraint, the effort to hold back to maintain control even when provoke is a powerful human experience. Audience feel that strain alongside the character. When restraint begins to erode, that shifting carries emotional significance. It represents a breaking point that feels earned. This gradual erosion makes the eventual release more impactful as viewers understand the cost of maintaining composure. Dark humor plays an unexpected but important role in connection. By viewing irony and subtitle wit into tense moment, the film reflects how people often cope with stress in real life. Humor becomes a release valve. It prevents the emotional atmosphere from becoming overwhelming heavy and instead create balance. Viewers appreciate the tonal contrast because it mirrors how laughter can coexist with anxiety. Viewers' experience is further shaped by the film grounded presentation. The action feels physical rather than fantastical. This realism strengthens emotional immersion because the world appears tangible, the stake feel closer to reality. The audience does not watch from a detached, spectral driven distance, they feel proximity to the consequence of each decision. That closeness enhances empathy. There is also an undercurrent of empowerment embedded in the emotional journey. Watching a character navigate escalating challenge with control capability can evoke a sense of vicarious strength. The film does not frame power as effortless but as disciplined and intentional. For viewers, this becomes inspiring. In a subtitle way, it suggests that resilience is cultivated, not accidental. Ultimately, nobody to connect emotionally by aligning its mood and theme with universal human experience, pressure, identity, responsibility, and restraint. The tension mirrors internal struggle, cathartic action offer release. The humor provides relief, the grounded tone sustain authenticity. The result is an emotional experience that feels balanced rather than overwhelming. It does not seek to devastate or sentimentalize. Instead, it invites viewers to see fragments of themselves within heightened circumstances. Through mood-driven tension and thematic depth, the film creates connection not by demanding sympathy but by reflecting familiar emotional rhythm in an intensified form. In this film, the character work remains central to the film's identity even within its action-heavy structure. While the choreography and pacing deliver excitement, it is Hitch Mansell who continue to anchor the story. The sequel built on the foundation established in the first film, deepening huge internal conflict while preserving the trait that made him compiling in the first place. Hugh Mansell embodies that reluctant warrior archetype. He is not a hero driven by glory or spectacle. Instead, he is defined by restraint. His personality is built around control, intensity, dry statement, and calculated precision. What makes Hutch interesting is not simply his capability but by his hesitation. He understands violence intimately, and that understanding shapes the way he carries himself. There is always a sense that he is holding something back, that suppression becomes a defining feature of his identity. Emotionally, Hutch operates within duality. On the surface, he appears as an ordinary family man striving for stability. Beneath that exterior, however, lies a history forged in danger and discipline. The tension between these two versions of himself creates the psychological backbone of the character. He is not trying to erase his past, he is trying to manage it. The internal balancing act gives him depth. His conflict is not about discovering who he is, but about determining which version of himself should take control when pressure rises. The sequel portrays Hutch with greater self awareness. He recognizes the consequence of his action and understands that every choice carries weight. His moral complexity stems from that awareness. He does not act impulsively, He calculates even when pushed. There is thought behind his decision that restraint keep him grounded and prevent him from becoming a caricature of aggression. Becca Mansell play an essential role in reinforcing Hunt's humanity. She represents emotional grounding and the life he is determined to protect rather than functioning as a passive background presence. Becca reflects the relational stake of Hutch's choices. Her personality conveys intelligence and emotional silence. Through her, the film explores the strain that hidden identities place on personal relationships. She is not unaware of tension, she senses it. That dynamic adds subtitle complexity to their interaction. Harry Mansell, Hunch brother, provide tonal contrast where Hutch is tightly contained. Harry carries a more open confidence. His personality leans toward assertiveness and loyalty with flashes of humor that lighten intense moments. He reflects what Hutch might look like without constant restraint. The sibling dynamic introduces familiarity and trust, but it is also highlight difference in temperament. Harry's presence, sad energy, and occasionally serve as a reminder that capability can be embraced rather than suppressed. David Mansell, Hush's brother, bring another layer to the family dynamic. He represents experience and legacy. His personality carries dry wit and unapologetic confidence, suggesting a lifetime of understanding the world on its own terms. Through him, the film touches on generational continuity. Capability and discipline are not isolated traits, they are inherited, shaped, and passed down. David presents reinforcing the idea that identity does not form in isolation. The antagonistic force in the film are structured around control, menace, rather than chaotic villainy. They embody ambition, arrogance, or calculated cruelty, function as a reflection of what Hunch might become if he abandoned restraint entirely. Their personalities contrast with Hutch's discipline, where he measures consequence. They pursue dominance, this mirroring strength, the narrative tension without requiring exaggerated theatrics. What stands out in this film is how personality traits are revealed through action rather than exposition. Huge loyalty, patience, and protective instinct emerge through behavior. Because strength shown in composure. Harry's confidence appears in his directness. David experiences evident in his calm certainty. The film avoids heavy-handed explanation, allowing viewer to interpret motivation organically. Ultimately, the characters in this film are shaped by tension between who they appear to be and who they truly are. Hitch Mansell remains the emotional and thematic center, a man defined not only by what he can do but what he chooses to hold back. Surrounding him are figures who reflect loyalty, stability, and legacy and contrast. Together, they create a character-driven framework that gives the action narrative emotional grounding and psychological weight. In this film, the acting performance elevate the film beyond standard action entertainment, while the choreography and pacing provide excitement. It is the emotional commitment of the cast that gives the story weight. The performance feel grounded rather than exaggerated, which allow the tension and character dynamic to resonate more deeply. The lead actor reprises the role with a performance that feels more layered and confident than before. There is a visible maturity in the portrayal, specifically in the quieter moment. Instead of relying solely on physical intensity, the lead actor communicates emotion through stillness, eye movement, and subtitle shift in expression. The character's internal struggle is not loudly announced, it is carried in posture, hesitation, and restrained dialogue delivery. This approach makes the character feel human rather than mythic. What stands out most about the lead performance is the balance between vulnerability and capability. During action sequence, the physical commitment is convincing and raw. The exhaustion feel real. The strain in facial expression add authenticity to the choreography. Yet outside of those scenes, the emotional tone soften. There are moments where the character protective instant guilt and inner conflict quietly surface. These shifts create a performance that feel complete rather than one-dimensional. The emotional control display through the film anchor the narrative and keep the intensity grounded. The supporting cast contributes significantly to the film's emotional texture. The actress portraying the spouse bring warmth and quiet strength to her role. Her performance avoid melodrama, instead choosing restraint and realism. She communicates frustration, concern, and affection with subtitle no small reaction, brief pauses, lingering glances, mere response, add layer to scenes that might otherwise feel purely functional. Her presence humanizes the story and reinforcing the personal stakes at play. The actor playing the brother inject energy and charisma into the film. His performance carry confidence and sharp timing, offering tonal contrast without undercutting seriousness. There is a natural ease in his delivery that make his character feel lived in. He brings humor when needed, but also demonstrate loyalty and intensity during critical moments. The physicality in his performance complement the lead actor, and together they create a believable dynamic that feel rooted in sheer history. The veteran actor portraying the father add gravities. His performance carries and understand authority and shaped by experience and confidence. There is a calm assurance in his delivery that make even minimal dialogue feel impactful. His presence enhances scenes simply through composure. He does not need exaggerated gesture to command attention. Instead, the weight of his performance comes from timing and tone. This adds depth to the generational theme within the history. Antagonist roles are handled with control intensity rather than portraying villains are overly theatrical. The actors choose calculated menace. Their performance rely on composure and deliberate speech pattern which make confrontation more unsettling. The emotional contrast between calm antagonism and restrained heroism increases tension. It prevents the conflict from feeling cartoonish and keeps the stake grounded in reality. Chemistry among the cast is one of the film's strongest elements. The interaction between the lead actor and the supporting performer feel natural and unforced. Family dynamic in particularly are convincing. There is familiarity in the way characters speak to one another, interrupt each other, and respond emotionally. These interaction carries authenticity. The chemistry does not rely on grand emotional speeches but on small believable exchange. The relationship between the lead and spouse is especially effective. Their scenes feel intimate and genuine, reflecting shared history rather than scripted sentiment. Even moments of silence carry meaning. The actors show pauses to breathe, giving emotional weight to ordinary conversation. This dynamic strengthens the audience emotional investment. Similarly, the sibling chemistry add dimension. There is commentary, subtitle rivalry, and emotional respected community through body language and tone. It reflects feels spontaneous rather than rehearsed. That natural rhythm enhance action scene as well as coordination and trust appear organic. Overall, the acting performance in this film succeed because they prioritize emotional honesty over spectacle. The lead actor delivers a Norse portrayal that blends physical intensity with internal conflict. The supporting cast reinforcing the emotional core through grounded senior performances together. Their chemistry create a cohesive ensemble that elevate the film. Rather than simply serving the action, the performer provide heart, tension, and authenticity, ensuring that the emotional experience lingering long after the final scene. In this film, 2025, what strengthened the film beyond its action-driven surface is its attempt to ground hearted event emotional realism, while the promise lean into stylized confrontation. The characters themselves are written and performed with a sense of psychological weight. This balance between spectacle and sincerity allows the film to feel more immersive than exaggerated. Character development is handled through progression rather than sudden transformation. The central figure does not undergo a dramatic personality shift. Instead, his growth is revealed through increased self awareness. He begins the story already shaped by past experience, and the narrative built on that foundation. His development lies in how they respond differently to pressure, and how he reflects on consequence, and how he manages internal conflict. Rather than delivering new abilities, he deepens his understanding of responsibility. This subtitle art made this journey feel organic. The film pays attention to behavioral continuity. Reactions stem from established personality trait rather than plot convenience. When the protagonist hesitates, it aligns with his history of restraint. When he acts decisively, it feels earned rather than impulsive. That consistency enhances believability. The character decision may exist within an extreme world, but the emotional reasoning behind them feel grounded. Believability also emerges from vulnerability. Physical competence is balanced with visible exhaustion and emotional strain. Action sequences are not presented as effortless display of dominance. Instead, they carry weight. The character appear affected by conflict, breathing heavily, processing tension, absorbing consequence. These details prevent the film from drifting into fantasy. The realism does not come from minimizing action but from showing his toll. Supporting characters are given enough emotional shading to avoid feeling like narrative toll. The spouse far intense is portrayed with complexity rather than simplicity. She reacts with frustration, concern, and resilience in ways that feel authentic to someone living with uncertainty. Her emotional responses are not exaggerated for dramatic effect, they are measured and layered. This grounding adds credibility to the domestic tension of the story and dimension of the story. Similarly, familiar relationships reflect recognizable dynamic. Conservation carries subtext. There are pauses, unfinished thoughts, and restrained reaction that mirror real life communication. The sibling dynamic, for example, balances humor with loyalty. Moments of levity do not erase seriousness, they coexist with it. This blend of tones contribute to depth as relationship rarely operate in a single emotional register. Emotional range is another key factor in the film realism. Characters are not confined to one dominant mood. The protagonist move between calm detachment, protective intensity, reflective doubt, and subtitle warmth. These shifts occur gradually, often within the same scene. The ability to display layer emotion enhance authenticity. It suggests an inner life beyond immediate circumstances. Importantly, the film allows silence to carry meaning. Not every emotional beat is explained through dialogue. Sometimes depth is conveyed through stillness or reaction shot. There, restrain effect, respect that audience ability to interrupt. No, it also reinforces the idea that feel emotional conflict is often internal and unspoken. Antagonist character, while positioned with a heightened narrative, are portrayed with motivation that feel grounded in ambition or pride rather than abstract evil. Their composure and calculated behavior add a sense of plausibility. They act according to self interest, which feel more realistic than chaotic villainy. This Meyer portrays strengthens the central conflict by framing it as a clash of choices rather than pure molarity. The film realism is not documentary in nature, it exists with an emotional logic. Situation may be amplified, but reaction remain human. Fear is visible, fatigue is evident, relationships show strain under pressure, consequences linger rather than disappearing after confrontation. These details create depth within an otherwise fast paced structure. Ultimately, it achieves character depth by maintaining consistency in development, grounded in established trait, and allowing a broad emotional spectrum to surface naturally. The realism comes not from reducing action but from portraying its impact on identity and relationship through careful attention to behavior, vulnerability, and emotional variation. The film builds characters who feel tangible even with extraordinary circumstances. The production budget of this film is estimated at approximately $25 million. The figure places the film firmly within the mid budget range for Hollywood action cinema in today's industry landscape, with large scale studio blockbusters frequently exceed $100 million and sometimes reach $200 million or more. A $25 million production represents a comparatively controlled financial commitment. This budget level shape nearly every creative and logistical decision behind the scene. When analyzing cost range, it is useful to understand how films are typically categorized. Low budget action film often fall under $10 million, relying heavily on content setting and limiting cast size. Mid-budget film gradually between $20 million and $50 million allow for recognizable actor, polished cinematography, and carefully designed action sequence without the expensive spectacle of franchise tentpole. High-budget action film exceed $100 million and typically feature global location, extensive visual effect, and a large-scale destruction sequence. At $25 million, it operates with enough financial support to deliver cinematic quality while avoiding the risk profile of massive studio investment. Resource allocation within a $25 million framework must be strategic. A meaningful portion of the budget likely goes toward cast salaries, particularly the lead actor and the returning sporting performer. While the film does not rely on the ensemble of extremely high paid blockbuster stars, securing experienced actor ensure performance credibility. The lead presence carries both narrative weight and marketing value, justify a significant share of financial resource. Another major allocation area is stunt coordination and action choreography. Unlike effect heavy production that depends extensively on CGI, film in this budget category they often prioritize practical stunt work, hand to hand combat sequence control, explosion, precision driving, and rehearse physical confrontation requires skilled stunt teams, safety measures, rehearsal times, and insurance coverage. These components are not inexpensive, but they often provide a grounded realism that audience appreciate. Investing in practical execution rather than excessive digital enhancement can make action feel more immediate and authentic. Production design and location management also consume a substantial portion of the budget. Mid budget films typically avoid expensive international shots or large scale set construction unless absolutely necessary. Instead, they maximize efficiency by selecting versatile locations and designing adaptable sets. This approach reduces logistical cost while maintaining visual quality. Lighting, camera equipment, and technical infrastructure must still meet professional cinematic standards, but spending is carefully monitored to prevent excess. Post production is another critical expense category. Editing, sound design, musical scoring, and color grading are essential to shaping tone and pacing. Even if visual effects are limited compared to larger franchises, and there are still costs associated with digital enhancement, cleanup work, and compositing. In action films, especially sound mixing play a vital role in enhancing impact. Gunfire, physical impact, environmental sound, and musical cue must be precisely balanced to maintain immersion. Allocating sufficient funds to post production ensure that the final product feels polished and cohesive. Comparing this film to someone similar film highlighted financial positioning. The original Nobody was produced on a slightly smaller budget and demonstrated that tightly structured action storytelling can achieve strong audience response within blockbuster spending. Other mid-budget action films in recent years have followed a similar model, focused narrative content but intense action and reliance on performance-driven action tension rather than large scale spectacle. This approach often appeals to audiences who prefer character centered storytelling over excessive visual effect. Financially, a $25 million production carry lower risk than a tentpole release. The break even point is significantly more achievable, especially when factoring in revenue stream beyond theatrical release, home entertainment sales, digital rental, and streaming licensing agreement can substantially contribute to overall profitability because expectation are calibrated to budget size. Success does not require record breaking box office performance. Overall, the production budget of this film reflects a deliberate strategy, controlled investment, careful allocation of resources, and emphasis on practical craftsmanship rather than competing with massive franchise film on scale alone. It positions itself within a sustainable mid-range model. This financial discipline allows the film to maintain quality while minimizing risk, demonstrating how thoughtful budgeting can support both creative ambition and commercial viability. In the United States and Canada, this film earned approximately 21 to 22 million dollars at the domestic box office during its theatrical run. This figure represents ticket sale within the North America region and account for slightly more than half of the film's overall worldwide earning, which reached roughly $42 million globally. While not a blockbuster level result, the domestic performance aligned with the expectation for a mid-budget action sequence operating in a competitive theatrical environment. The film opened with an estimated $9 million during its first weekend, placing it behind larger studio release at the time. For context, major franchise film often targeting opening weekend above $50 million, sometimes exceeding $100 million, depending on brands. Nothing compared. A single digit or low double digit opening weekend is typical for action film that are not tied to massive intellectual property. The debut suggests solid interest from core fan but limited crossover appeal to broader demographic. Regional audience trend play a significant role in interrupting these numbers. In North America, theatrical audience has increasingly constructed around event-style superhero franchise, animated family film, and horror tile with strong viral marketing. Mid-budget action film, particularly sequel to cult favorites, often depend on loyal genre enthusiasts rather than casual moviegoer. This narrow audience base can cap opening weekend potential and reduce long-term growth unless word of mouth significantly expand the film reach. Compared to the original film, which earned significantly more domestically over its full run, the sequel performance reflects the difficulty of expanding a franchise beyond its established fan base. The first film benefited from novelty and strong word of mouth during a period when theatrical competition was relatively limited. By contrast, the sequel entered a more crowded marketplace, facing direct competition from larger scale studio projects. This competitive context likely influenced audience distribution and screen availability. When compared with similar mid-budget action film in the 20 and 40 million production range, the domestic earning of Nobody to Fall with a familiar pattern. Film of this scale often generate total North America grosses between $15 million and $50 million, depending on star power, marketing reach, and release timing. Unlike tentpole film designed to dominate the box office for multiple weeks, mid-tier action movies typically experience shorter theatrical runs and steeper second weekend declines. Another important factor shaping domestic box office result is changing audience behavior. Theatrical exclusivity windows have shortened in recent years, and many viewers are aware that mid-budget film will become available on digital platform relatively quickly. This expectation can reduce your urgency to purchase opening weekend tickets, particularly among adult audience who form the core demographic for character-driven action film. As a result, box office performance alone does not always capture total audience engagement. From a financial standpoint, domestic revenue must also be considered relatively to the production budget. With the production budget estimated around $25 million, a domestic gross of roughly $21 to $22 million represent a substantial portion of cost recovery through marketing expense are not included in that production figure. For mid-budget film, profitability often depend on a combination of domestic ticket sale, international revenue, premium video on demand, streaming, licensing, and home entertainment distribution. In terms of audience trend, North America viewers have shown consistent and sport for grounded performance driven action film, but these projects rarely achieve explosive theatrical number unless attached to major franchise. Instead, they often build long term value through streaming visibility and repeat viewership. These patterns suggest that while Nobody 2 may not have dominant domestic box office chart, its performance is consistent with the current economic realities facing mid-budget theatrical release. Overall, domestic box office result for this film reflects steady but moderate audience turnout in North America. The film performed in line with genre expectation, navigating strong competition and evolving viewing habit. When place in context of budget, scale, regional audience behavior, and comparable film, its domestic earning illustrate both the challenge and sustainability of mid-range action filmmaking in today's market. The international box office for this film brought in roughly $20 to $21 million outside of North America, contributed to a worldwide total of about $41 to $42 million. When analyzing separate from domestic performance, the international figure reflect how the film resonating with overseas market and illustrate broader trend in global audience reception for mid-budget action titles. Looking at regional performance, action cinema tend to perform best in markets that have a strong appetite for genre entertainment. Countries in Europe, Latin America, and part of Asia often sport action films that rely on physical choreography and clear emotional stake rather than heavily localized humor or culturally specific references. In these regions, audiences generally respond well to visual storytelling and familiar narrative structure, which can help a mid-budget action sequence like Nobody 2 find an audience even without the same level of franchise identity as larger blockbuster properties. In Western Europe, for example, urban centers with robust theatrical market often contribute a meaningful share of international box office for genre film. Cities in the United Kingdom, Germany, France, and Spain have audiences that regularly attend action release, especially when marketing emphasizes physical suspense and recognizable talent. The film presence in these markets likely drew viewers who saw the original Nobody and appreciated its blend of grounded violence and dry humor. In Latin America, similarly, cinema-going culture lean toward genre entertainment and action film that travel easily cross language barriers often perform solidly. This cultural pattern help explain why the sequel's international performance was balanced rather than front loaded in one specific region. Market reception in Asia can be more varied. In territories like South Korea and Japan, audience have a long history of engaging with action films, but culture preferences often skew toward locally produced, originally styled cinema. Mid-budget Western action film may perform moderately well, but rarely achieve the blockbuster heights seen with Hollywood franchise tentpole. In Southeast Asia market, the genre remain popular, yet the presence of normal competition from both local production and other international film influence box office share. This performance in these areas likely reflected this mixed reception, respectable yet not overwhelming. The impact of marketing on international reception should not be overlooked. Promotional campaigns for film of this size typically allocate a moderate budget for overseas visibility. Marketing material that emphasize action sequence, characteristic, and familiar stylistic element travel well across culture, but without the massive spend of franchise blockbuster. Awareness can be uneven in market with strong promotional pushes trailer circulation closed and localized advertising and targeted preview audience turnout tend to be higher in region with less aggressive marketing. The film presence may depend more on word of mouth and reputation of the original film. Film in this category often see international box office total similar to or slightly higher than their domestic figure depending on the global appeal of the cast and the universality of the theme. In this case, the overseas earnings were roughly comparable to the domestic take, suggesting that while the film did not become a major global sensation, it maintained broad enough appeal to secure meaningful theatrical attendance worldwide. Another factor is the timing of release. International release window can vary, and film that stranger their entry into overseas market may benefit from sustained interest as word of positive reception travel across region. On the other hand, simultaneously global release often concentrate audience attention but require higher marketing budget to support visibility everywhere at once. Nobody performance indicate a balance. It did not explode in any individual territory, but it drew audience across multiple regions steadily. Cultural reception of action film also play a role in many international market. Audience appreciate narrative that are straightforward, visually compelling, and anchored by strong performance. This film fit that pattern by delivering grounded action and clear emotional stake without relying on complex franchise lore or localized humor that might not translate. This universality helped the film secure incremental box office across diverse regions. Overall, the international box office performance for Nobody to reflect a solid reception within the context of mid-budget action cinema. The film found its audience across Europe, Latin America, and part of Asia, supported by recognizable genre element and strategic marketing. While the international earning did not eclipse domestic performance or revival larger franchise film, they contributed meaningfully to the film global total and underscore how balanced regional appeal can sustain mid-range action titles in theater around the world. The worldwide gross of this film reached approximately $42 million, combining both domestic and international box office earnings. While examining this figure, it is important to separate total ticket sale from actual profitability. A film worldwide gross represents the total amount earned at theater globally, but it does not equal nor net profit. To understand financial performance accurately, a break-even analysis must take production cost, distribution expenses, and revenue sharing into account. Production budget estimated at $25 million. The film fall into the mid-budget category. However, production cost alone does not determine profitability. Marketing and distribution expenses, often referred to as P&A, print and advertising, can significantly increase total investment for a mid-range action film. Marketing cost may range from $15 million to $30 million depending on the scale of release, promotional strategy, and number of territories involved. Even if marketing spend was moderate, the financial outlay likely exceed the original $25 million production figures. The profitability analysis of this film require looking beyond its headline box office total and examining the relationship between revenue and total cost. The film reportedly carried a production budget of approximately $25 million. However, the production costs represent only the part of financial equation. Marketing and distribution expenses, often referred to as P&A, print and advertising, must also be included when determining the true investment for a release case and territory coverage. This suggests that the total financial exposure for the studio may have landed somewhere between $40 million and $55 million. Audience reaction to this film reflect the response typically seen with mid-budget action sequels. Strong appreciation from core genre fan, mixed enthusiasm from casual viewers, and steady engagement across digital platform. While the film did not generate massive mainstream buzz, it maintained consistent interest among audience who were already invested in the tone and the style of the original installment. Now we talk about from the viewer's perspective. This film succeed most of its cinematic control and tonal consistently. The film understands its scale and never attempt to inflate itself into something it is not. Its cinematic quality, lines, focus, storytelling, tight pacing, and action sequence that feel deliberate rather than chaotic. The direction favors clarity over excess, allowing scenes to breathe without sacrificing moment. In terms of production value, the film delivers solid craftsmanship within its mid-budget range. The stunt choreography is sharp and grounded, emphasizing physical realism over digital spectacle. The cinematography maintains a gritty, intimate feel that complement the narrative tone. While it does not offer grand visual set pieces on a blockbuster scale, it compensates with coherence and attention to detail. One mirror weakness is that certain environment feel contained, occasionally limiting visual clarity. The performance remains the film's strongest assets. The lead actor brings depth and restraint, balancing vulnerability with intensity in a way that anchored the story emotionally. Supporting cast member add texture and credibility, especially in quieter character moments. The chemistry among the central characters reinforcing authenticity and raises emotional stake beyond simple action. On the other hand, we were seeking broad humor or a light-hearted escapism may not find it as entertaining, while the other are moments of drive with the overall mood lean serious and control. It is not designed as a family outing or a casual comedy action hybrid. Its strength lies in disciplined storytelling rather than crowd pleasing spectacle. Overall, the Nobody 2 is recommended for adult audience who enjoy grounded action, practical choreography, emotional restraint, storytelling. It's to viewers who appreciate character-focused narrative within the thriller genre. Those who prefer explosive franchise-style entertainment or lighter comedic action may find it less satisfying. Ultimately, the film offers the most value to viewers who connect with its mature theme, subtitle, emotional resonance, and deliberate pacing.